This is our second example. I give you a graph and you try and figure out the polynomial that belongs to this graph. So we're going to start by writing our f of x, and we're going to build this polynomial function. And I also need to tell you that this y-intercept here is 32. Okay, you can see from the scale here it's about 32. First thing we do, locate your zeros. Here's 1 0, here's another one, here's another one. I have 3 zeros. This 0 is at -1, this one is at 1, and this one is at 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's start writing our factors. My first factor with this 0 I can write as x plus 1 times x minus 1. That's my next 0, this one here. And this 0 I can write as x minus 4. The next thing I do, remember, I look at my end behavior. I notice that this graph is rising to the left and falling to the right. That looks a lot like I know this is an odd degree. It's an odd degree, and it's going to remember this function, the cubic function. When we have this like that, where it falls to the right and rises to the left, that's when I have my negative x cubed. So since this end behavior looks a lot like this, I know that this has a negative in front. The other thing I look at is the multiplicity of the zeros. This 0, the graph touches, it doesn't cross. So when it touches and doesn't cross, I know this is even multiplicity. That must mean that x plus 1 is a degree 2 polynomial. This 0 did cross the x-axis, so that must be multiplicity 1, or odd multiplicity. So I'm going to use exponent 1 here. The last 0, notice how the graph touches, doesn't cross, and comes back down. That must be an even multiplicity, so that means this is an exponent of 2. Okay? Now what I'm left with is finding this a. We know a is less than 0 because it's negative, but I need to know what number this is. So this has to match with what I'm saying about my y-intercept. So what we do to find out is I take the polynomial that I've constructed so far and I try and find my y-intercept as is. So if I leave this function as is like this, what would be my y-intercept? And how we do that is we expand. You don't have to expand it, but I like to because you don't skip any factors, and you might skip them if you don't expand. So I have x plus 1 twice times x minus 1 times x minus 4 twice. The next thing you do is you start multiplying. You take negative times positive 1, negative 1. Negative 1, or let me write this out. I would take negative times 1, this is the one I'm using, times this 1, times negative 1, times negative 4, times negative 4. That's what I'm multiplying with my negative in front, okay? So, and this is not equal to that. I'm just calculating. So negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 4 times negative 4, you get positive 16. So this would be my y-intercept. My y-intercept would be positive 16. Positive 16. That's if I leave this polynomial as it is right now. But the graph is telling me my y-intercept is 32. So I have to compensate for that fact. So if I were to leave it like this, I get a 16. So what do I need to add as my a? Negative what? So that when I'm done, that negative times this 16 that I found gets me 32. That number would have to be 2. So my end result, and this is not f of x equal, this is y-intercept equal. My end result would look like negative 2 times x plus 1 squared times x minus 1 times x minus 4 squared. And that's your final answer. If you want to check to make sure that your y-intercept is 32 as the graph indicates, take negative 2 times 1, negative 2, times 1 again, negative 2, times negative 1, that would be positive 2, and positive 2 times negative 4 is negative 8, and negative 8 times negative 4, again, that gives you 32, and now it coincides with your y-intercept. So there you have an idea of how to find this A. Another way of doing it is, if you know your intercept has to be 32, but you found that your intercept is 16 if you leave your function like this, you divide those two numbers and it gives you 2. This tells you the number that you need to use as your leading coefficient to compensate. And then you'll have 32. And remember your negative symbol because of the end behavior. Okay, I hope this helps. Enjoy, have fun studying, and this is just, just beautiful. Take care.